looking perfect on a limited palette. Here's your look at McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman Arkham City Gold Label Collection Catwoman. An orphan who learned to survive on the mean streets of Gotham City, Selina Kyle turned to thievery to survive. Determined to do it with style, she learned martial arts and trained in gymnastics to perfect her skills. Her criminal activities are tempered by her reluctant altruism, making her an inconstant villain and occasional hero. She maintains a complicated adversarial relationship with Batman that frequently turns to flirtation and occasionally romantic. Now, before we see what colors remain on Selina Kyle, let's first grab the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. This is a simple reuse of the existing mold that they had already put out before with the Arkham City Catwoman, to which I will bring that figure in so you can see the comparisons between the two. Catwoman, though, stands 7 inches in height, or the figure is going to be about 17.5 centimeters tall. And here's the comparison of the two Catwoman. I'm just going to slide over the one that's slightly black and white to bring in one that's a little bit more in color. This is the original Selina Kyle from Arkham City. Still has, though, the same problem with slightly unstable feet. Of course, she does come included with a display stand I would most recommend using when you're looking to display her on the shelf. You might find yourself displaying her with 2 of the 3 provided accessories. Or you might be one that also likes to display your figures with cards. If that's the case, then you can use all 3. The figure comes included with a trading card. Now, just to reach off to the side and bring in the one that came with the original Selina Kyle, you'll notice it is the exact same image that has been distorted, though, and changed digitally. So you can see that this one is basically had all the colors sucked off of it, other than just really keeping the lenses of her eyes in that crimson red. It's pretty much the same color as you can see in the glasses on the other Selina Kyle, but other than that, it's the exact same background image as well. Flip around the back of it, and it seems like the stats are also exactly the same. So if you were to read, say, this one, you in a sense would also be reading this one as well, as it's the exact same read-up. I do like at least that they used source material and not used figure photography. I'm going to be putting these together side by side inside my trading card sheets. Then on to the rest of the figure's accessories. Not really the most exciting thing, but she does come included with a display stand. It's exciting enough, at least, to know that this figure does come included with a display stand. Ask yourself right now how many companies still provide display stands with their figures. The numbers are small. But this one is a simple black display stand. As you can see, it does have the DC logo branded down below, and one neighboring peg off to the far corner. This can attach to either one of Selina Kyle's feet, as on the bottoms of her boots she does have holes. It's best advised to probably use those because, of course, the figure does have, because of the footprint of her feet, she has a little more instability, actually having her to properly stand. Then, of course, the other thing the figure comes included with as well is her whip. Now, I would have just simply assumed that this was the same whip that came included with Selina Kyle. Now, you may think this is just a simple remold until you actually look at the original whip that came included with Selina. Now, I can only also say, too, it's likely still the same mold. I mean, if you were to stretch the two out, they probably would be lining up with one another. Kind of like in the cop drama shows where they take a fingerprint and they line it up over top of one another and they realize they had the killer in their hands the whole time. This was probably just a case where this one was slightly bent. This one, again, was just had the chance to breathe a little bit. So you can see, in this case, like the whip is a little bit longer, but it's only by longer just because, again, I think this one was a little bit more pinched together, if that makes any sense. They are posed, though, slightly different. So, I mean, I guess you could say there's a little bit of a difference between the two. And the whip can be held in her hands. She only has one hand, really, to do that. This gripping hand right here is more than enough to hold the whip. Although, you will notice, when you do put the whip into her hand, the whip handle is quite, again, large. I do wish that they could make these accessories just a tad bit smaller. It actually looks like she's carrying around a spray can or maybe even a grenade as opposed to a whip handle. Let's go ahead and just remove her from the display stand for right now. There is, like the original Selina, no place to store the whip if you're looking to put her on display. I mean, it's either just to be putting her in her hand, or I guess you could also just kind of drape it around her shoulders and not even have it attached to her hands at all. Putting that to the side, now, I did order this online. Originally, they had the entire set of the Arkham City figures done in this color scheme. I'm not sure how far down the rabbit hole I really do want to go to collect all of them. And in each of the cases, actually, in fact, they all included it as well. Let's just put Selina Kyle here down for a second. She also does come included, of course, with the torso of Solomon Grundy. I'm going to bring in the Solomon Grundy that I have in not the greatest of states. The legs, at least, of Solomon have fallen off the figure yet again, so I'm going to go ahead and have to retrieve those later. But I did want to at least show you that the torso is a little bit different than the original one. It still has, of course, the cut open section of its chest, but it has, in this case, actually some additional blue coloring that wasn't present here in the original Solomon Grundy. Again, I don't know how far down I really want to go with collecting the entire wave, because again, like, it's all the same figures we got from Arkham City before, and it has all the same component build-a-figure pieces to build Solomon Grundy. Do I again want all of those? Really, the one I was the most interested in was to get Selina Heel. You know, again, I have to say, like, the figure looked pretty good. Picking the figure up right now, getting a closer look at it. I'm going to also bring back in the color. Hey, how did that get over there? I'm going to bring in the colored version so you can see the difference between the two. This Selina is actually more based on the marketing campaign that went along with the Arkham City games. This one does have, like in the promotional artwork, promotional posters, and again, a lot of the media that went along with it, basically the character done here in black and white, with one notable feature on the character, in this case her goggles, being the only thing that represents the color. The colors of the Crimson goggles seem to be identical. I mean, although this one you could say is a little bit brighter than the original Selina Kyle. Now, one thing I would have said, too, is with also the gold label edition version of her, I think this could have also been the chance for them to actually have a head sculpt where the goggles were over top of her eyes. Just to, again, reach off to the side here and grab the card that came included with the figure. You can see, like, the card does have the goggles over top of her eyes. I wish they could have followed suit and perhaps given the gold label the opportunity, the time to shine with actually the goggles over top of her eyes. Still, despite being simply just a reuse of the exact same mold, there's got to be something mileage-wise to be made from, like, this head sculpt was already really good to start off with. But I got to say, like, it works quite well here with the black and white color scheme as well. While the features maybe don't stand out as much, like the rosier cheeks, for example, on the colored version now get completely gone here on the black and white release, there still is a good opportunity to see a beautiful looking face of Selina Kyle. And I got to say, like, both of them do things quite well. Obviously, for the sake of just displaying her on the shelf with the rest of my DC Multiverse figures, I'm going to go the route the color. But I got to say, like, the black and white does look quite good too. Let me again get a closer look at the face. One thing I really like, too, is sometimes when you see prototype images of the figures before they actually get color, sort of this reminds me a little bit of that as well. Most of the colors, of course, here on Selina Kyle's costume, that's a lot of you can see are pretty much the same. The black doesn't look like anything's been changed between the two, although maybe this one's just a little bit more of matte black. The zipper, which was originally silver, is now instead just more of a muted gray. The arms look to be exactly the same. The only thing that's missing here, the original colored version would have had the brass knucks done here, or at least silver knuckles done here. The original, or newer one, doesn't have that at all. The boots look to be identical also as well. But again, like the plastic, maybe if anything, looks a little bit more muted on the gold label edition, and was a lot more shinier here with the original Catwoman that you had to look at. Now, obviously, you can't switch the heads around because, again, the zipped open top that she has would still be revealing black and white underneath. So you wouldn't be able to switch the two. But again, like, I really do like this head sculpt. It's still it was just pretty before when we looked at the figure the initial time already. But, you know, again, like, the black and white does work quite well to this figure. Again, do I really want to get a Penguin? Do I really, want to get a Ra's al Ghul? Do I also want to get another Batman? I don't know. Maybe for right now, I might just stick with getting the Catwoman, because Catwoman, really, to be fair, of the four, I think looked the best in this black and white color scheme. For the figure's articulation, it's going to be exactly the same as before. The head rotates all the way around. It is on a ball joint. It does look up quite a lot. It does look also down quite low. And you can also rock the head back and forth as well. Shoulders do come out, although I noticed here on this figure, this shoulder is really tight. Tight to the point where I feel if I'm going to move it too far up, I'm going to snap the joint. Don't want that. Don't want that. But if, for all intents and purposes, in a perfect world, you'd be able to get it about 90 degrees on Catwoman's arm. The arms also, as well, rotate all the way around. The figure does have a bicep swivel. The figure does also have a double hinge on the elbow. And like before, the hands also rotate all the way around. They're attached by pegs. Upper torso is on a ball joint. Lower torso is also on a ball joint. And as for the legs once again are ratcheted joints, so you can hinge those legs, getting a splits to about that far on the figure. You can take the legs, move them forward, you can move them back. There's a mild swivel at the top of the thigh, double hinge, yes, on the knee. Articulation here, nothing. null and void here on the boots. But again, you have the articulation here on the ankles, and you can rock them back and forth. Again, just to look at the footprint space here for Catwoman, and again, also to mention, she also has toe articulation too. But the feet are quite small. This part is quite small. The heel behind it is quite small. So it is going to cause a little more problems when it comes to the figure standing properly. So, but again, I just want to again remind you guys that she does come included with a display stand. You know, again, just to put that on the figure's feet. No sense of me just hoping that she's going to balance right. Let's go ahead and get her to balance perfectly. That was horrible. Let's go ahead and also take the colored version of Catwoman and plug her in onto the display base. So again, to ensure that neither figure is going to fall over. Yeah, again, in this case, it's just cosmetic change. They haven't retooled the head, which, you know, again, I feel like for a gold label edition of this figure, gold labels tend to also be not only just color changes on the palette, but also sometimes a swappable head or an unmasked head is provided instead. I think in this case, maybe not necessarily an unmasked head sculpt, but maybe one instead that would have had goggles down on the front of her face. Now, I actually sat on looking at this wave for a while online. The wave's been around at least, I think, about a month or so, and every time I looked online, there was a sale eventually on this wave over on the site that I eventually bought this from. And for the longest time, I just looked at the set and I thought to myself, well, do I really need to fork over the funds to get myself a wave of figures which are essentially the same ones as we got before? From what I can see, the Ra's al Ghul, the Penguin, the Batman, and obviously here the Catwoman, nothing necessarily gets retooled here. It's simply just cosmetic changing, taking a lot of the colors that were originally on those figures, extracting them out, and leaving behind black and white instead. Now with Catwoman, I think is the best of the 4 figures of that wave. I might still see myself going back and picking up those individual figures, although looking at it now in hindsight, I probably should have just, the sale was on the entire wave. I should have probably just bought the entire wave, and then it just ended up having maybe Selina Kyle. Selina Kyle being my favorite of the 4. Selina Kyle, I think, works the best using the black and white color scheme, because I already really liked the head sculpt and the rest of the body in the first place on the original Selina that we looked at here. But taking the colors now and just pulling that away from the figure leaves behind not only a really pretty looking head sculpt, but also gives a chance to shine for those goggles, because it's the only part of the only color that's on the figure's body. The rest of the figure's body is basically just still sticking to black, which really, I guess for all intents and purposes, isn't the best example to showcase the black and white color scheme of those media promotional artworks. But it does work the best, I feel, for at least Catwoman. The whip is, though, slightly different. It's the exact same mold. I know, you don't have to tell me down below, it's the exact same mold. It's had a little more time to breathe. Whereas the other one, I think, was a little bit more pinched together. At the end of it, yeah, I do wish, though, that the gold label edition of Catwoman would have at least had, at the very least, the goggles down head sculpt. I'm sure that may be something that they're going to release down the road anyways, to get the most mileage out of the molds. After all, they already have a good-looking mold. Just do a different head sculpt. You probably could even just use the existing head, but tool one that has the goggles down instead. Would you guys be interested to see a goggles down version of this Selina Kyle Catwoman from Arkham City? If you would, let me know down below in the comment section. And if you have had the chance to pick up any one of these marketing gold, I put in quotation marks, it's the marketing material that they would have used for Arkham Asylum, Arkham City games, which again, it would have had all the characters done in black and white, with one notable feature generally done in the color. But again, have you had the chance to pick up any of these figures? And if you have, weigh in your thoughts down below in the comment section. Is this a wave double dipping, of course, the original molds? Is it still worth picking up? Weigh in your thoughts down below. Also, as well, if you enjoyed this video, want to hit with a like. If you're loving the content, yes, that you guys are seeing and do want to stick around, yes, for more, then make sure if you haven't already done so, if you already have subscribed, there's no sense to subscribe again, but if you have already subscribed, one thing you can also do as well, if you are having any problems where you're not getting the proper notifications to know that when new videos are posting. In fact, actually, I just read a couple of comments the other day. Somebody said, oh, I didn't realize you still post content. You may also be being one of the victims of the notification glitch that's going around here. So if you are one that's not getting those reminders, those notifications of new videos that are uploading, one thing I certainly could recommend that you guys do is unsubscribe to this channel. Wait, what? And then go back, subscribe again, and turn on the bell notification. Then you'll see everything was back to the way it was before the glitch took into effect. Lots of videos coming your way, guys. We're also going to be looking at some more McFarlane toy stuff. So if that's the kind of thing that you come to this channel for, it's definitely going to be a lot more of that coming your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.